Let's cut across to two very senior journalists who've watched the workings of Dr. Singh very closely. Joining us today, our consulting editor Rajdeep Sardesai. In the studio with me, senior journalist Prabhu Chawla. Rajdeep, to begin with you, you've penned some, an emotional tribute for Dr. Singh, Rajdeep. Today, when you look back, what's your biggest takeaway as, in cliches, one would suggest, an end of an era?
Well, let me put it this way, Preeti, that I would look at Dr. Manmohan Singh not so much as a politician, but as a person. The person in Dr. Manmohan Singh, I think, overwhelmed the politician in him. And that person was self-effacing. He was always dignified. And he symbolized a certain goodness in public life. And I saw that on more than one occasion in my interactions with him. Here was someone who had a deep commitment to nation above self. And I know that is often said as a cliche, but in Dr. Singh's case, it was true. You just have to look at his career in public life. He performed every task before him almost as a duty. And that is the way I saw him. I remember asking him every now and then questions about whether he had any regrets. And he kept telling me that in the life that I have led, I don't want to see any regrets. I only want to see it as me being just an individual who performed the roles he was given. He never aspired, in a sense, to any sense of greatness. Every time I spoke to him, he was almost camera shy. I recall when we played a TV song, Singh is King. Someone from his office rang up and said, why do you need to have this euphoric drumbeat around Dr. Singh? Please keep it low profile. I mean, think about it. In a world where there is endless, relentless self-promotion and marketing, here was someone who was actually not wanting the arc lights. And that stood out for me. I mean, even when it came to his family, here was someone who made absolutely no effort and ensured that his family was always kept out of the arc lights, never pushed them into public life in any form. In fact, made it a fetish to keep them out of the limelight. I recall, Preeti, that I was doing a show in 1999, and we were at Dr. Singh's house, and it was his grandson's birthday. And we wanted to film the birthday party, and he made it very clear that if that was the case, we would have to leave the house. He said, this is my private life, and you will not have any part of that. So he zealously guarded his private life. And I thought that right through his political career, through all the ups and downs, he maintained a certain quiet dignity. Some saw it as a weakness, but I think it was his great strength that enabled him to handle pressure and also at times takes tough decisions, because there was no sense of ego or personality cult at all, or arrogance that was built around his persona. So it's that persona of this quiet, dignified Indian committed to nation building that I will see through that prism, I will see Dr. Singh, Preeti.
Rajdeep, since the course of the morning, we've seen the spontaneous outpouring of grief, of tribute, of people giving their personal anecdotes. Mostly what we've seen, Rajdeep, is all of them coming together, suggesting that this was a man who was the architect of Indian reform. Look at how he stood steadfast during the India-US nuclear deal, be it Manrega, be it Aadhaar, be it RTI, technocrat, economist. But we've had people, Rajdeep, and I think you'd be the best to come in and, talk about that. And if we have Mr. Prabhu Chawla with us as well, to actually speak about, he was a deft politician. Because if you look at 2008, where, his government was going through a trust vote with all the issues with the left, how he built consensus with the Samajwadi Party, or even in the candidature of, his own party person to the position of president, which was...
Look, he was a politician, but not a politician in the classical sense of the term. He was not involved in the skullduggery of politics. Even whether it is the Indo-US nuclear deal, it was others who went around garnering the support of the Samajwadi Party, for example. But he was someone who astutely knew, you could argue, which way the wind was blowing. So while being close to Narasimha Rao from 1991 to 96, Once Narasimha Rao lost and faded away, Dr. Singh moved into a new role. He became eventually the leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha, eventually Prime Minister, and aligned himself very firmly with Sonia Gandhi and the Gandhi family. So here was someone who knew, perhaps you could argue, having practiced the corridors, having worked through the corridors of power as a bureaucrat as well, which way the wind blew. But he was not involved in the lies, the deceit, which is all part of politics. He actually abhorred it. I remember doing an interview with him again in 1999 where he says that explicitly. He admits that he was not cut out for that kind of politics. It didn't mean he was not a politician, but he was a politician of a very different kind. He saw himself primarily as someone involved in public service. I think that's the role he saw himself, whether he was Reserve Bank of India governor, chief economic advisor, finance minister, and indeed prime minister. And I think through all of it, the reason why I felt emotional today was, look, for my generation, Dr. Manmohan Singh and the team around him, and I emphasize the team around him, enabled us to dare to dream. He gave us opportunities. If you and I are on a private news TV channel today, it's because that explosion took place post 1991, as did so many opportunities. And remember, he was a meritocrat. He came through academic scholarship, came from a poor family. He tells me this emotional story a few years ago of what partition meant to him, the sense of loss of losing his home in a way in Pakistan and coming to India. But he never ever spoke about it in public.
Exactly.
It was private to him. And he was, that day, for the first time I saw him 2 years ago when I spoke to him about this, he was getting emotional. And his wife had to stop us. Gursharan ji was the big boss in the house and say, Chaliye, Dr. Singh, ab chai pee lete hain. That was the man.
You're
and
right
I think we
there,
need to
Rajiv.
recognize that. He was a true meritocrat who then created opportunities for many others to grow. And that's why I think for my generation, I would like to see Dr. Singh as a man who enabled India to dare to dream post 1991.